Today on the podcast, Rose Pearson. Rose is a superintendent of Carrizo Springs Consolidated ISD, where she returned to lead in her hometown after building a career of service and transformation in education. Earlier in her journey, she was principal of Goodnight Middle School in San Marcos, where she inherited a punitive culture and high suspension rates. There, she led a powerful shift toward supportive interventions, student engagement, and teacher-led leadership. Today, we'll explore how she transformed that campus into a national AVID demonstration school in just 3 years, why empowering teachers sustains long-term change, and the role of nomination in helping others step into leadership. By the end of this episode, you'll walk away with strategies to build trust, empower your team, and create lasting transformation on any campus. Let's get into the conversation. Today, I am honored to have Rose Pearson,
yes, sir,
from Carrizo Springs, superintendent of Carrizo Springs there, and you've just been named superintendent there too. This is your second year.
I'm starting my second year.
Okay, fantastic. So we're welcoming her to Transformational Educators podcast, where we're going to hear a transformational experience that she had guiding a campus that was hurting to thriving.
Yes.
So, Rose, you and I just met, but I know at least you are good at basketball. And I think it's neat to hear that you grew up in Carrizo Springs. I think you said graduated high school from San Marcos.
Correct, yep.
And then worked there for a while.
Most of my career was in San Marcos, yes.
Okay. And now you've gone back home as superintendent, your first superintendency.
My first.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we want to talk about this campus that you led as a principal. Can you tell us about the campus? Was it in San Marcos?
Yes, it was at Goodnight Middle School, 6th through 8th grade. We had about 1,000 students.
Okay.
And it was, there had not really been a focus on instruction. And I had the unique opportunity of starting my principalship with a new superintendent. So same year. And he had a very strong vision for instruction.
Okay.
So, and that was good for me.
Now, you had gone from an instructional coach into principalship, I think. Were you an instructional coach on that campus?
No, I wasn't. I was at the district level. So I was assisting many campuses.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So when you arrived at this middle school,
yes,
right, what was it like? What was the culture like? What was performance like at that time?
Yeah. So the culture was really punitive towards student behavior. It was very much, there wasn't a lot of response as far as putting in a supportive plan for students. It was more punitive, like just straight to in-school suspension. Our numbers were really pretty sky high with out-of-school suspensions, in-school suspensions, placement at the alternative education placement. And so we knew that was a concern because when students are not in the classroom, then they're missing really valuable instruction. And so having to shift that culture was, something that we needed to do in order to be able to focus on student outcomes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you think about a punitive culture, if you were just coaching me, right, and you said, hey, you're a punitive culture, here's how you shift that.
Yeah.
What are the steps I would go through to, because that seems pretty dramatic to change.
It is. It's a lot of voice. I think I knew I was onto something when I first became the principal and I met individually with teachers. And that's really important when you're coming onto a new campus and you're trying to build relationships, is take the time to meet with everyone and just listen, have some key questions about like what's working, what's not working, what needs immediate attention, what just needs attention, but we're not going to be able to shift it right away because some of those things take a little longer.
Yes.
And through those conversations, I came to know very quickly that there was several teachers that felt that they needed to do some RTI, response to intervention, but they felt like their hands had been tied, that they were not allowed, that they had been directed to just remove students, not to try to work with them. So once I had enough of that information and I knew that we were heading in the right direction with this, then we started having conversations in our leadership team meeting and just establishing some steps on beginning basic changes they could do in their classroom, like moving a student's seating, before we exit them out of the room, or, making phone calls and having a conference with the family, things like that.
Right.
But it's all about relationships, and it's about getting teacher voice. It's really important to get teacher voice, especially, in a middle school, junior high type level, so.
Yes, absolutely. So were you able to do that before school started, or did you get the position and go right into
No,
kids?
I was able to do it before school started.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's really
Yeah.
important to have the summer to do some relationship building and assessment.
Yeah.
It sounds like you were listening and learning
Yes.
at the same time.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and then out of those conversations,
Yeah.
start to build a plan. So
Yes.
in the first couple of months, what started to change?
Where we had teachers that were sharing some of the strategies that were working. We also had the privilege of starting AVID, which is Advancement via Independent Student Determination. And so we really worked as a team to keep everything on the same plate for teachers. So we're trying to create a positive school culture, which is part of AVID, because part of it is also recognizing students' efforts. And so like positive behavior supports.
Absolutely.
And so it wasn't a far reach to say, hey, we're starting these new initiatives and these are some of the things we're going to do.
Yeah.
So.
Was it hard to get buy-in for AVID? Was that your idea?
So our superintendent brought it in for the district, and all campuses were going to participate. And it was not hard to get us to jump right on board, because we actually had some students who were really very high achieving students, but they really struggled at home. And so like what you would consider like a school dependent students.
Okay.
And we found out really quickly that some of our students didn't believe that they could go to college.
Okay.
Some of our students didn't feel like they could afford to go to college. And so the teachers, we knew we needed to do something about that. Like, not under our watch, our students not going to believe that they have opportunities.
Right. That's right.
And so through conversations and knowing that AVID would be our vehicle to accomplish those goals, everybody jumped on pretty quickly. So
that's fantastic. I know the leader for AVID has a program leader is important. So you must have picked a really good one.
Yeah.
Hey, is today's conversation resonating with you? You know, the educators we feature on this podcast all have one thing in common. They're committed to growth, not just for their students, but for themselves. At Graceland University, we've built programs and partnerships that support that kind of growth. Servant leadership and school transformation for educators who want to make a lasting difference. If you're curious about what that could look like for you, scan the QR code or check out the link in the show notes. Let's get back to the conversation.
So as you started to implement that, the punitive nature of the culture shifted. It sounded like pretty quickly.
Yes.
And so then was there any other strategies you implemented, AVID as well?
A really strong focus on instruction and just reviewing data that had not existed before. Just the previous administration, it really wasn't about, it was more about compliance instead of student engagement. So we really started talking about like, what does student engagement look like, sound like, feel like. And we created our AVID committee, and that was teacher leaders in all of the departments and grade level. So it really was a cultural shift to professional learning for teachers.
Fantastic. Yeah. And so they grew, kids grew, performance started to improve.
Yep.
How fast did you see changes start to happen at the student performance level?
We started seeing it pretty quickly, because we started AVID, and within 3 years we became a national AVID demonstration school, which is kind of unheard of. It happened very, very quickly. Wow. So
that is fantastic. And that demonstration school means student performance, not just behavior. Yeah. Right. I don't know the factors specifically.
So you have to be accredited through implementing change. So they come and they monitor that, you've created student leadership, teacher leadership, voice. And so some of the things that we did very intentionally was we moved all of our committees and our faculty meetings. Everything was teacher led. And so like our family engagement, there wasn't.
Not administrator.
So if you think of a traditional, a lot of times it'll be teachers maybe, and there's an administrator, and they're all kind of looking at the administrator because like, what are we going to do? And we shifted that complete culture. Everything was shared by teachers.
Now,
everything was budgeted by teachers.
Now, how did you think to do that? Had you experienced that?
So so this is second year. So first year you learn, like you said, you listen and you learn a lot. And true story, at the end of that year, while we had moved the needle some, I knew that there was more work to do.
Sure.
And I sat there with my leadership team of my assistant principals, and I said, I think we did it all wrong. And they're like, what are you talking about, Rose? And I said, we need to move the committees, the professional learning. We need to move all of it to the teachers. And so that summer we had our leadership retreat, which is our department heads.
Okay.
They come over and we put charts all around the room, and it had all of our big rocks, that we do, like family engagement, discipline, professional learning. And then we just had conversations, kind of like a SWOT, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and said what's working for us and what's not working for us, and kind of let them come to their realization. And at that time, they had questions like, are you really going to trust us for the decision-making process? If we bring forth this idea, can we really run with it? And so we talked about the guardrails or the parameters, like everybody has a budget, so stay within your budget.
Sure.
Check the calendar. I still need to approve the calendar, as a principal. So once we worked through those questions, then they became believers of, okay, we really do have some authority or an autonomy to make some decisions. They went way beyond what I ever would have imagined ever.
Wow.
I mean, I actually, as a superintendent now, it's the same way I coach my principals, turn it over to the teachers, because they're going to make it so much better through their lens, and they excelled. They created family engagement nights that I just never knew surpassed any of what my expectations were.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Rose, so one of the things that we see about transformational leaders, and we use that term with the expectation that it's sustained, that the leader can leave and the transformation is sustained. And it has sustained. It has sustained.
Yes.
Yeah. And
it's incredible. It makes my heart very, very happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about a story about one particular person that really touches you there, and just what experience they went through?
Yeah. As far as the teachers?
Yeah. A teacher, a student,
so
parent.
This is a true story too. And,
only tell true stories.
Yeah. This is it's an incredible true story, because she's still there and still making such a tremendous impact. And her name is Dana Linebarger. She was a 6th grade math teacher when I got there as a principal. And she was doing such incredible work in her classroom. Everything that you want to see: small group instructions, high student engagement, working with them on behaviors, putting that response to intervention in. And I said to her, Dana, I really want you to share this with the staff. We were trying to transform our faculty meetings to be more professional learning opportunities. And if we could send it in an email, that wasn't in our faculty meeting. We wanted it where it was an opportunity for teachers to learn. And she said, Ms. Pearson, I just don't want to do that. I don't feel comfortable doing that. And I was like, why? And she's like, because I feel like I'm going to have a target on my back. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, I'm afraid that if I tell, what I'm doing here, other teachers are going to be like, you're going to make us have to work harder, So it was really changing that culture, right? To honing your craft and that professional learning for teachers. Well, long story short, she became a leader in our AVID teacher leadership team. Wow. And now, so many years later, she is works at the district level and supports the entire district with AVID and other instructional approaches. So from going from that teacher who was just not sure and didn't have the confidence to now being a leader in the district as a coordinator overseeing instructional work. I mean, I think it talks to what the power is with teacher voice.
So true.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful, Rose. Thank you for sharing that. It speaks to a real core element of what we believe, which is that we talk about the power of nomination in someone's life, casting a vision or speaking a positive word about what they can become or the influence that they can grow that they may never have thought about. Yeah. But oftentimes fear is keeping them in the position that they are. Yeah. But we can share confidence with other people. Yes. It's a really interesting thing that if I'm confident and believe you can, then you'll absorb some of that and say, okay, well, I can try it.
I absolutely believe that. Yeah.
And
I've seen it work through my entire career. I'm, 26 years in, and I've had the same people. I'm blessed to say I have many, many mentors who have seen that in myself. Early on as a teacher, I can recall, Dr. Almendares, who was at the district level, saying to me as a teacher leader, like, Rose, you're going to make a difference. You're going to be a great leader. And I'm like, okay.
And what does that look like?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. And to think that you're now getting to do this in Carrizo Springs, your hometown, and the impact that'll have on the community.
Yes.
I know you're in the middle of transforming it to what it can become.
Yes.
And so I just, really want to support you there. So thanks for sharing these very specific things. I mean, addressing the punitive nature of the culture is real specific. The way you built relationships. AVID was a great way to have an outside. Thankfully, the superintendent brought that.
Yes.
So you didn't have to take any shots for implementing it.
Correct.
So that was super helpful. But then really to lean on these leaders and even involving them in your strategic planning in the way that you did.
Yep.
And a lot of times people talk about listening, but when we really listen and we learn, we use that to learn, and then we take that and we implement elements of it, it builds such credibility with our teams, and that they trust that, well, I can share another idea because that first one was heard. And over time, those ideas come and, things we could never think of.
We built that culture, and we would say, we're going to have a go. And it was safe. It was safe. It wasn't that anybody was going to be in trouble. We were going to have a go, especially when we're implementing a new strategy, campus wide. And so it was very well embraced. And it's you're exactly right. It's all about the listening and the relationships. And I still get the text messages from Dana and from some of the other leaders just sharing the good news that's going on there.
That's so important.
And especially they just got, so I said I was there when they got, when we got the AVID demonstration school, but you have to reapply every 3 years, I believe it is, and go through the process again to sustain it. And so they just did that. And on the day of, I got a text message from them saying, Rose, we wanted you to know, and thank you for taking us on this journey. And that's really what it's all about. I mean, I feel that my job as a leader is to grow other leaders. And if I'm not doing that, then I don't think I'm doing my job.
That's right. Yeah. Well, your job's going to be harder if you're trying to do it all, but that shared responsibility and leadership is such a great model to sustain. So, congratulations.
Thank you.
I wish you the best. Thank you so much for being on this with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure to meet you for sure, Rose. All right.
Thank you.
If today's conversation gave you fresh insight or inspired you to lead with purpose, please follow the show and tell a friend. It helps us reach more educators who want to make a difference. For more stories, resources, and tools to support your leadership journey, visit graceland.edu. Until next time, keep leading with courage and care. If you want to keep learning about transformational strategies in education, click the next video.